Now, we face a dangerous and escalating war in Iran, which was begun in violation of international law by the extremist Netanyahu government. And the main point that I want to make today is that it is absolutely imperative that the United States not be dragged into this war. Let me say a word about how this war began. On Thursday, Netanyahu launched an illegal and unilateral surprise attack on Iran, bombing targets across the country and killing hundreds of people. Iran has responded with attacks of its own, which have killed dozens of people in Israel. Whatever you may think of the corrupt and authoritarian Iranian regime, Israel's attack clearly violated international law and the United Nations Charter. While every country has the right to defend itself, they do not have the right to launch so-called preemptive wars of this kind. But let's remember who Netanyahu is. He is a war criminal under indictment by the International Criminal Court for starving innocent people and killing civilians in Gaza. At this very moment, in Gaza, Israel continues to prevent the UN from delivering humanitarian aid. And just today, in Gaza, Israeli tanks fired into a crowd desperately trying to collect food, killing at least 59 people. So it should come as little surprise that Netanyahu ignored international law to start this war with Iran. But Netanyahu's decision to strike also directly contravened the express wishes of the United States, which was seeking a diplomatic resolution to the long-standing tensions around Iran's nuclear program. In recent months, the United States has held 5 rounds of negotiations with Iran to resolve these long-standing concerns. Let me repeat. In recent months, the United States has held 5 rounds of negotiations with Iran to resolve these long-standing concerns. A 6th round of talks was planned for Sunday, but Netanyahu chose instead to start this war. So let's be clear. Israel's attack was specifically designed to sabotage American diplomatic efforts. In fact, in its first round of strikes, Israel assassinated the man overseeing Iran's nuclear negotiating team. And let's also remember that U.S. intelligence has never indicated that Iran has made the decision to build a nuclear weapon. Just a few months ago, Trump's own Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, testified to Congress that, quote, the intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon.
Iran's cyber operations and capabilities also present a serious threat to U.S. networks and data. The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003.
But Netanyahu chose to attack, crippling diplomatic efforts and risking a full-blown regional war. He is now openly talking about regime change in Iran and threatening to kill the political leadership of that country without any thought to the chaos that might ensue. Let's also not forget that the current Islamic regime in Iran is itself the product of a Western-backed coup in 1953 that overthrew the democratically elected government of Iran and replaced it with a corrupt autocrat.
What if I told you the CIA orchestrated a coup to overthrow Iran's prime minister in 1953? Here's how it all went down. Mohammad Mossadegh, Iran's democratically elected prime minister, had just nationalized the oil industry. This infuriated the British, who had been controlling Iran's oil through the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, today's BP. Desperate, the UK turned to the US for help, playing on Cold War fears of Soviet influence. Enter the CIA. Led by Kermit Roosevelt Jr., the US launched Operation Ajax. They spread anti-Mossadegh propaganda, organized protests, and bribed officials to create chaos. On August 19, 1953, Mossadegh was overthrown, and Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was reinstated. The Shah's authoritarian rule sparked the Iranian Revolution of 1979. Today, the coup's legacy still fuels mistrust between Iran and the West. History isn't always what it seems.
The critical question now is whether the United States will get dragged into Netanyahu's war. In my view, that would be a disaster. The United States must not be involved with another Netanyahu war, not militarily or financially. The United States Constitution is crystal clear. There can be no offensive use of military force against Iran or any other country without an explicit authorization from Congress. No such authorization exists, and any U.S. involvement would therefore be illegal. The United States has already provided hundreds of billions of dollars to Israel over the last many decades. Last year alone, U.S. taxpayers provided more than $22 billion in military aid to Israel. Meanwhile, while providing massive aid to Israel, we have Americans sleeping out on the street, unable to afford health care or other basic necessities. Enough is enough. President Trump ran as a supposed peace candidate. In his inaugural address, he said, and I quote, "My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier," end quote. Very fine words. Trump should remember them today. Supporting Netanyahu's war against Iran would be a catastrophic mistake. Instead of going to war, Trump must work with the international community to rein in Netanyahu and urgently push for a diplomatic solution. Netanyahu's illegal attack has made the world a more dangerous place. The United States must not be a part of this war.